Constantinople did not fall in a war. It fell in 53 days. A city that survived 1100 years of every empire on earth was killed by cannons it had refused to buy 6 months earlier. 1100 years. That is longer than the United States, the British Empire, and Imperial Russia combined. An empire that watched Rome fall, watched Islam rise, watched the Mongols ride west, watched the Vikings come and go. And it died in less than 2 months because one emperor said no to a Hungarian engineer who knocked on his palace door selling artillery. That engineer walked across the city walls and offered the same cannons to the Sultan camped outside. The Sultan paid him 4 times what the emperor had refused. 6 months later, those exact cannons were tearing 1,300-year-old Roman walls into rubble. The walls that had stopped Attila the Hun. The walls that had stopped 23 separate Arab and Bulgar and Russian armies. Walls that had never been breached in 1,000 years of siege warfare, reduced to gravel by a weapon the empire could have owned for the price of a small estate. Every military academy in the world still teaches this collapse. West Point, Sandhurst, St. Cyr. The lesson has nothing to do with Byzantium. The lesson is what happens to a superpower when it convinces itself that the rules that built it cannot be rewritten by something new. The same arrogance ended 3 modern empires in the last 100 years. So how does the empire that outlived Rome by 1,000 years die in the time it takes a modern army to deploy? How does the most sophisticated state on earth, with the most fortified capital in human history, get strangled by a 21-year-old sultan and a Hungarian arms dealer? And what was the exact moment it became inevitable? This is Dust of Dynasties. By the end of this, you will never look at Rome's Eastern survivor the same way again. To understand the death, you have to understand what was being killed. In the year 330, the Roman Emperor Constantine did something no Roman had ever done. He picked up the capital of the world and moved it out of Italy, across the sea, to a small Greek trading town on the Bosphorus called Byzantium. He renamed it after himself. Constantinople, the new Rome, the city he believed could not be taken. He was right for 1,100 years. The site itself was a fortress before a single stone was laid, water on 3 sides, a peninsula, currents that wrecked any fleet that tried to anchor wrong, and on the one land approach he built walls that still defy belief today. 3 lines of them. A moat 60 feet wide, an outer wall, an inner wall 40 feet high and 15 feet thick, towers every 50 meters, archers stacked in layers so the men attacking the moat were dying from arrows fired by men they could not even see. No army on earth could break those walls, and for over a millennium, none did. When Rome itself fell in 476, the Western Emperor was a teenage boy who handed his crown to a barbarian and disappeared from history. The eastern half did not even attend the funeral. They considered Rome a province that had failed. The real Rome was in Constantinople. It always had been, in their minds. And in many ways, they were right.
Greek became the official language, but the people called themselves Romaioi, Romans. They never stopped. Even in 1453, the men dying on those walls were dying as Romans defending Rome. For centuries, the empire was the richest, most sophisticated, most feared state on the planet. While Paris was a swamp village of 10,000 people, Constantinople had 500,000 citizens, indoor plumbing, public hospitals, university libraries, and a bureaucracy so complex that Western kings sent their sons there to learn how a real government worked.
Their armies were professional. Their navy invented a weapon called Greek fire that could burn on water. Their diplomats turned bribery into a science so refined that they routinely paid one barbarian tribe to destroy another and watched both collapse. This was not a kingdom. This was a machine. a machine that had survived everything. And no one inside it understood that the rules that built it had just expired. The first cracks did not look like cracks. They looked like victories. In the year 1071, the empire met a new enemy on a field called Manzikert in eastern Anatolia. The enemy was the Seljuk Turks. The emperor was a man named Romanos. He had 80,000 men. The Seljuks had maybe 30,000. Every Roman officer knew the script. Outnumber the enemy, hold formation, crush the wings, watch them break. The script did not work this time. Romanos was betrayed by his own deputy in the middle of the battle. A noble named Andronikos pulled the reserve units off the field while the emperor was still fighting. The Seljuks watched the Roman line collapse from the inside and rode through the gap. The emperor was captured alive. It is the only time in 1100 years that a Roman emperor was taken prisoner by a Muslim army. The Sultan released him within a week, almost embarrassed by the windfall. But the damage was already done. Anatolia, the heartland of the empire, the breadbasket, the recruiting ground for half the army, was suddenly open. The Turks rode west and never stopped. Within 10 years, they had taken everything east of the sea. The empire lost half its tax base, 2/3 of its food supply, and the soldier farmers who had filled its legions for 700 years. It survived, but it was bleeding from a wound that would never close. Then, in 1204, something worse happened. The Fourth Crusade was supposed to liberate Jerusalem. Instead, it ran out of money in Venice. The Venetians offered to forgive the debt if the Crusaders did them one small favor: sail to Constantinople, help install a new emperor, get paid. The Crusaders agreed. What followed was 3 days of horror that Christian soldiers inflicted on the largest Christian city in the world. They sacked Constantinople. Christian against Christian. They burned the libraries. They melted the bronze horses of the Hippodrome. They raped nuns inside the Hagia Sophia and put a prostitute on the Patriarch's throne. The Byzantines had survived 800 years of Muslim sieges without losing the city. It took fellow Christians 3 days to break it. The empire was restored 57 years later by a Greek general who walked back into a half-burned ruin. But the Constantinople that returned was a ghost. The population was 1/10 of what it had been. The treasury was empty. The walls were intact, but no one remembered how to maintain them properly. The empire after 1261 was not an empire. It was a memory wearing a crown. It controlled a few patches of Greece, a strip of coast, and the city itself. Nothing more. And the world around it had moved on. By the year 1450, the empire was dying in slow motion, and everyone knew it. Everyone except the men inside the palace who still believed something would save them. A young sultan named Mehmed had just taken the Ottoman throne. He was 21 years old. The European courts dismissed him as a child. The Byzantine emperor sent him insulting letters demanding higher tribute payments and threatening to release a rival claimant the Ottomans had locked away in Constantinople. This is the moment the empire signed its death warrant. Mehmed read the letter and smiled. He had been waiting his entire life to take Constantinople. The city haunted Ottoman dreams the way Jerusalem haunted Christian ones. 3 sultans before him had tried. 3 had failed. Mehmed had decided he would be the 4th, and he understood something none of his predecessors had understood. The walls were the problem. The walls had always been the problem, and the walls were now solvable. Watch this from above. The Bosphorus is a narrow strait. The empire's last stronghold sits on its western bank. To take the city, Mehmed needed to cut it off from the sea. He built a fortress on the European shore in 4 months. He called it the Throat Cutter. Any ship trying to reach Constantinople from the Black Sea now had to pass under his cannons. Then a Hungarian engineer named Orban arrived at the Ottoman court. Orban had spent the previous year in Constantinople. He had offered to build the emperor a cannon larger than anything in Europe. The emperor could not pay him. The treasury was bankrupt. Orban was sent away with nothing. He walked across the Bosphorus and sold the same design to Mehmed. The Sultan paid 4 times the asking price and gave him a workshop, a forge, 100 craftsmen, and unlimited bronze. 3 months later, Orban delivered a monster. It was 27 feet long. It fired a cannonball weighing 600 pounds. It took 60 oxen to drag it. It could only fire 7 times a day because the barrel had to cool for hours between shots. But each shot punched through stone walls that had stood for 1,000 years, as if they were made of paper. The emperor inside Constantinople heard rumors of the cannon and did not believe them. He should have believed them. April 6, 1453. The Ottoman army arrives outside the walls. 80,000 men, 69 cannons, a fleet of 300 ships in the Sea of Marmara. Mehmed sets up his command tent on a hill overlooking the city and looks down at his prize. Inside the walls, Emperor Constantine XI has fewer than 7,000 defenders. Most of them are not soldiers. They are merchants, monks, foreign sailors, and Italian volunteers who chose to die alongside Rome's last emperor. The Genoese sent 700 men under a captain named Giustiniani. 700 against 80,000. The cannons begin firing on April 12th. You are on the wall, the Theodosian wall that has never been breached in 1,000 years. You hear something you have never heard, a sound that doesn't belong on earth, a roar that shakes the stone under your feet from a mile away. Then the wall behind you explodes, not cracks, explodes. A section of the outer wall the size of a house collapses into the moat in a single moment. Men disappear. The men next to you are pulling bodies out of the rubble, and the rubble is still smoking from the impact. Then, an hour later, it happens again. The defenders work through every night, repairing what the cannons destroy by day. They fill the breaches with timber, earth-filled barrels, and the bodies of the dead because there is nothing else left to use. The walls are being eaten alive in front of them, and they cannot stop it. For 53 days they hold. Mehmed assaults the walls 3 times in the first month. Each time the defenders throw him back. The Genoese captain Giustiniani fights at the worst breach personally. He is everywhere. The defenders are fighting on willpower alone now. But the cannons keep firing. On the night of May 28th, Mehmed gathers his army and announces the final assault. He promises 3 days of plunder to any man who survives the morning. The Christian defenders attend a final mass inside the Hagia Sophia. Catholic and Orthodox stand together for the first time in 400 years. They take communion knowing most of them will be dead by sunset the next day. The emperor takes off his imperial regalia. He throws away the purple boots that mark him as the Roman emperor. He picks up a sword. He says he will die as a soldier on the wall, not as a king in a palace. He walks out the palace door and never comes back. The assault begins at 1 in the morning. Wave after wave hits the walls. The defenders push them back. 2 hours pass. 3. The Ottomans are losing thousands of men in the moat. Mehmed is screaming at his commanders to throw more men in. He sends the elite janissaries last. Then, everything changes in 30 seconds. A small gate called the Kirka Porta has been left unlocked. No one knows why. Maybe negligence, maybe sabotage, maybe a sortie that didn't lock the door behind them. 50 Ottoman soldiers slip through it and climb to the top of a tower. They raise the Ottoman flag. The defenders below see the flag and think the wall has fallen. At the same moment, Giustiniani is hit by a crossbow bolt and falls. His Genoese troops carry him off the wall. The Greek defenders see their best commander being evacuated and assume the line has collapsed. The panic starts in one corner of the wall and spreads in seconds. Constantine XI is at the breach. He sees his army breaking. He raises his sword. He shouts that the city has fallen and he will not survive it. He charges into the Ottoman wave alone. He is never seen again. His body is never definitively identified. The last Roman emperor disappears into the dust of his own collapsing wall, 1123 years after Constantine I built the city that bore his name. The empire died in his last breath. The morning after, the city was unrecognizable. Mehmed gave his soldiers 3 days of plunder as promised. They stripped Constantinople of everything that could be carried. The Hagia Sophia was looted, its gold ripped from the walls, its mosaics smashed. 40,000 citizens were sold into slavery in the markets of Edirne and Bursa. The Byzantine aristocracy was rounded up, and most of them were executed within the year. But on the third day, Mehmed entered the city personally and stopped the looting. He rode to the Hagia Sophia. He dismounted. He walked inside the largest church in Christendom, a building that had stood for 900 years. He looked up at the dome and wept. Then he ordered it converted to a mosque and turned and walked out. He took a new title that day. He was no longer just Sultan. He was Kaiser Irm Caesar of Rome. The Ottoman sultans claimed the Roman imperial title until the empire itself dissolved in 1922. Rome did not die in 1453. It changed owners. Across Europe, the news arrived slowly. In Rome, the Pope wept. In Venice, the Senate wept harder because they understood what the Mediterranean trade routes were now worth without a Christian gatekeeper at the Bosphorus. In Paris and London, people heard the news with confusion. Most of them had forgotten Constantinople still existed. The Greek scholars who escaped the city carried something west with them. They carried the books. For 1,000 years, the libraries of Constantinople had preserved the writings of Plato, Aristotle, Archimedes, Euclid. The works that Western Europe had lost when Rome fell. Now those books crossed the Adriatic in the saddlebags of refugees and arrived in Italy at the exact moment Italian merchants had grown rich enough to buy them. The Renaissance was already starting. The fall of Constantinople accelerated it by 50 years. The empire died and seeded the rebirth of the civilization that had abandoned it. Now look at what this collapse actually means in your world right now. Every great power in history has died from the same wound. They build a system that works. The system makes them dominant. They confuse the system for a law of nature. Then, someone invents a new weapon, a new tactic, a new technology. And the dominant power refuses to adopt it, because adopting it means admitting their old system is no longer enough. Constantinople refused gunpowder artillery for a generation. The Ottomans embraced it instantly. That single decision difference erased a 1,000-year head start. The same pattern killed the Spanish Empire when it refused to industrialize. The same pattern killed the British Empire when it refused to abandon the gold standard until the world had moved past it. The same pattern is killing every modern superpower that watches a rival adopt new technology and decides to wait one more decade before responding. Every NATO war college teaches the siege of Constantinople, not the tactics. The cognitive failure. The way a sophisticated bureaucracy can become so proud of its sophistication that it cannot recognize an existential threat until the walls are already falling. The Hungarian engineer Orban, who walked across the Bosphorus, is the most important man in this entire story. He was not a great general. He was not a king. He was a freelance technician with a new idea who got rejected by the establishment and accepted by the disruptor. That same exchange happens every decade in every empire on Earth. The men inside the palace never see it coming. They see a salesman they cannot afford and they send him away. The man on the other side of the wall sees the future and pays whatever it costs. Constantinople did not fall to the Ottomans. Constantinople fell to the version of itself that refused to change. The dust covered them all the same. The emperor with no body, the sultan who became Caesar, the Hungarian engineer no one remembers. Look at what your country refused to buy 6 months ago. Was it the cannon outside your walls? Or was it just a salesman you couldn't afford? If you had been Constantine the 11th in that final winter, knowing what you now know, would you have paid Orban what he asked, or was the empire already too dead to save by the time the cannon came knocking? If this kind of military collapse is what you came here for, the channel does the rest. Subscribe. Next week, we open up the man who burned Persepolis in a single drunken night and lost his empire before his body was cold.